Best College Football Podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Sadkoviak. Clinton, sir, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. It's been a bum rush of an evening between getting home from work, getting the kids ready to eat dinner, and then going to t-ball practice, and then getting one to bed so I could rush down the stairs to do this podcast. But other than that, it was my first day without my student, which you will have tomorrow, and it was an adjustment after 4 months of not having to do much work. I was very busy. How are you, Ryan?
I'm just tired. I'm ready for the fucking playoffs to be over.
Ryan will become more alive once both his NHL teams are eliminated, folks. Or if they win the Stanley Cup.
Well,
the way they're jubilated.
The way the both of them are playing, I might only have to worry about this for another 9 days. So it's all good.
Which of your two teams, Stars or Vegas, has a better chance to win it?
Probably Vegas. Just because they're at least somewhat healthy and not missing two of their three best players. And Minnesota's not as good as Colorado.
I distinctly remember this time last year, you going through this same problem, Ryan. Same problem. Because
they played each other. No, they played each other in the first round last year.
That's what it was. So that's a double trouble for you.
And then I think 2 years before that, they played each other in the conference final.
That's what it was. Okay. Well, at least your hockey teams are always prevalent. My Columbus Blue Jackets, they were better this year. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, being a West Coast sports fan on the East Coast, especially in the NHL, is stupid because they don't know how to sequence game start times. The game starts at 8:55 local time in Dallas tonight. That's absurd.
So what is that for us? 10:55?
9:55. No, they're an hour.
Okay. Need to do my geography for my time
Yeah,
zones.
imagine you're going to a Cavs game that starts at fucking 9:00.
Not on a weeknight.
Not on a weeknight.
That sounds horrible.
Not on a weeknight.
I better
ridiculous.
have the day off tomorrow. And that's for us, it's really hard to plan that, right? Because we have a caseload full of patients that we can't just drop off at the drop of a hat. So,
good times.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, best of luck to them tonight. Is there just one or both tonight?
I could only be so fortunate that they'd both play on the same night, so at least then every other night I could sleep. No, they have to fucking stagger them on back-to-back nights.
Oh, poor Ryan.
My Garmin watch is scalding me for my sleep quality. You sleep like an asshole.
I think we've had this Garmin watch and this sleep talk before, Ryan. Is this a reoccurring theme year-round?
I don't have any idea. I'm probably not forming any new memories at this point, so we could have had this conversation each of the last 5 shows for all I know. I've just not registered any of those memories into my long-term memory banks.
We did talk about your hockey and staying up late last week as well. Last episode.
Well, I have
common theme for the listeners. It is no longer a college football podcast. It is a Ryan sleep talk and NHL hockey talk.
Yeah, I could say anything. You never know. There's nothing in my brain right now.
All right, guys. If you're joining us live on the YouTube channel tonight, thank you very much. As I just tweeted out not too long ago, we'd be live in 30 minutes while I was under the stress of, will my toddler actually go to bed? But we made it. So, again, give us a follow on YouTube, ITP CFB. Hit that like button and subscribe. And then give us a follow on YouTube. I just said YouTube twice. Mushbrain, after a day of no PT student. Follow us on X and Instagram at ITPCFB. And then also check us out on your preferred podcast platform, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, wherever you get it, you can find us. Be sure to hit like, follow, and leave us a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate it. Back to you, Ryan.
Tonight, we are continuing our spring previews, looking through these teams at a glance heading into the 2025 season. Tonight, we have the hard-hitting content you have all been waiting for. We have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and the Northwestern Wildcats, Clinton. 2 high-powered, tantalizing Big Ten teams.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Our first sound in 6 shows.
That was probably disrespectful.
Well, Northwestern's really intelligent. I don't know about Rutgers.
Northwestern is very intelligent. You're right. That was probably not the correct sound to use for the very smart Northwestern Wildcats. However, their football team stinks. But let's start with Rutgers, Clinton. Coming off another bowl season in 2024, they finished 7-5 in the regular season and lost in, I want to say it was the Reliant Quest Bowl against Kansas State. I don't know what bowl game this was. The Rate Bowl.
Great Bowl, yes.
Whatever the fuck the Rate Bowl is. Against Kansas State, they lost 44-41. It was, I don't know how Rutgers fans would technically quantify the 2024 season, because in a vacuum, a 7-5 season for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, good overall season, but this was a team that had probably slightly higher expectations heading into the season, and those expectations we talked about ad nauseum last summer and into the fall were a product of the schedule more than anything. But 4 straight losses smack dab in the middle of the season to Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, and USC derailed what had started as a 4-0 season. They got back on the horse there a little bit, finishing 3-1 over their last 4 games, with their only loss coming to a very good Illinois team. So all in all, an okay year for Rutgers, but the schedule certainly gets much harder this year, and they are going to have to replace, a fair amount. We're talking about a defense last year that was ravaged by injury, so a lot of young guys got some experience on this squad. But biggest loss on the team is running back Kyle Monungai off to the NFL, but perhaps the passing game, Clinton, takes a step forward in 2025 with returning starter Athan Kaliakmanis.
Yeah, he's coming back for year 2 in the final leg of his college football journey, because everybody gets 5 to 7 years in college football now, Ryan. Coming off of last year, though, he set career highs in both yardage and touchdowns. He went to 2,696 yards passing and 18 TDs. So for many schools, that would be a low, but for Rutgers and their passing game, it was a high. He did drop his interceptions also from 9 to 7. But we only had a 53.9% completion rate. So that was kind of the talk. If you remember, we talked with Ryan Burns about the transfer of Kaliakmanis. Was solid quarterback, completion percentage, not great. If he could improve upon that, how much of a big step forward that would be for Rutgers. But I believe we were also coming off a Rutgers team 2 seasons ago that their completion percentage in quarterback play was like 40%. So as you always say, when the floor is the ceiling, it can only go up. He was also the first Rutgers quarterback to eclipse the 2,000-yard mark since 2015, and he had the most passing yards since 2014. I think a big thing is you're pairing QB and OC again with Soraka. He's now in year 3. The offense averaged 28.9 points per game last year, which is their best mark since 2008. So a lot of broken or new type records, whether it be personal player records or Rutgers, when things had taken 10 or more years for their offense to be better. Then we kind of look at beyond Kaliakmanis, if there's some type of injury, what do they have? They were looking at AJ Sarras. Was that be how you say it, Ryan? Sarras. And then a Johnny Shepard. But a Johnny Shepard hopped in the portal when it opened, so Sarras is now the QB2. He came into the spring game and looked pretty good per the... I'm blanking on what I read on today. Anyways, he looked poised, confident, and perhaps most importantly, accurate. He led the Scarlet team. He finished 15 of 24 for 220 yards and 1 touchdown. So, some positivity in the quarterback room that we have here. You mentioned the passing game overall, though, and a big talk last year wasn't necessarily Kaliakmanis that we would bring up. It would be the receiver rooms that they had. So, if you want to talk a little bit about that, Mr. Ryan.
Not really, Clinton. Jesus Christ.
Rutgers doesn't excite you, Ryan?
No, I'm trying to read through your notes here, and you just wrote a bunch of names down. I'm like, there's no context here.
Listen, today has been a rough one. Take what you get.
Fuck, man, I guess.
I also had 2 toddlers while trying to tape together some of this stuff. So
yeah, hold on 1 second. You keep talking for a second. I'm going to look something up.
Well, the big point is coming into the receivers this year is youth in the room. They're relatively young. Fama Toure, Ben Black, KJ Duff, Ian Strong. They've all impressed. But the big name to watch that we will keep our eyes on through the rest of spring, well, spring's kind of wrapped up now, but through the spring season into summer and fall is Vernon Allen III, who now he's an incoming freshman. He is 6'2", 195 pounds. Early enrollee, obviously, if he's playing in the spring game. 5 catches, 98 yards on Saturday. So a key young name for the folks out there to watch and see how much of a factor he has in this year's team.
What is Daimir Miller? He done?
I believe so. I did not see his name listed with any of the receivers.
Okay, so that was kind of, I mean, what mostly spurned, I think, that kind of late season resurgence that they had last year was, he took a big step forward, and then Ian Strong, who is back, I believe you just said, took a big step forward as well. Ian Strong finished last year 43 catches, 676 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then third leading receiver last year, KJ Duff, returns as well, 27 catches, 425 yards with a score. KJ Duff, a very big human being, 6'6", 219 pounds, to go along with Ian Strong, who, they don't have his numbers listed. That's unfortunate. But, yeah, so they got a chance early in the season, I think, to kind of get this offense rolling. Clinton, they're doing a little bit of a tour, not necessarily through the MAC, but the MAC is doing a tour through Piscataway, starting with the you get the 2 MAC championship game participants to open up your season. That's a sneaky tough start.
Yes, and I mean, Daquan Finn is now at Miami, Ohio, after his 1-year tutelage at Baylor. So that's a pretty big quarterback talent for Miami to strut out there. And then you have the defending MAC champs, Ohio Bobcats, which I'm repping tonight, who will knock off the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in Piscataway. That's our opening Thursday night game, guys. So Ryan and I will be making our pick'ems, and I'm sure if there's a quad box, dual box, whatever you want to say, that will be one of the games we have on there. But time for these receivers to get some reps and to be able to break in. And it's not only the receivers that are going to be breaking in, but you mentioned it at the start of the show. Fun guy, Kyle Monungai, drafted by the Bears in the 7th round, which I think, in talking with, who was your friend from Rutgers?
Steve,
and then Brian Francesca last year. Coming in this year, I thought Monungai would be much higher on teams' boards, but drafted, another Big Ten team to add, but that is a huge portion of their offense last year. Past 2 years, really, for them. But this year, 2 names for you guys to watch. We got an Antoine Raymond and CJ Campbell Jr. Ryan asked for stats, so here are the stats. Antoine Raymond was the 2nd leading rusher on the team last year, 457 yards, 8 touchdowns. He mentioned the bowl game, 124 yards and 3 TDs. And then CJ Campbell Jr., he is a red shirt junior transfer, a true dual threat, guys. And this is in the article I was reading today. They talk about how Shianu doesn't require a ton of his backs in the passing game. Well, you have a guy here now. He comes in from FAU, 844 yards on the ground, 11 TDs, 5.1 yards per carry. But he also had 40 receptions for 466 yards and 3 TDs. So he gives Rutgers a nice dump-off piece out of the backfield that they can utilize to expand upon that passing game further that Ryan was just talking about.
Very, I think, interesting subplot to this team. Offensively will be interesting to watch how they kind of reform themselves, not having that true bell cow at running back anymore. Even a nice year, you touched on the nice year for Antoine Raymond, but Kyle Monungai still with 156 more carries than anyone else on this roster last year, and that was only in 11 games. So a lot of production to replace there, not just from an actual yards touchdown standpoint, but from the sheer volume that they were giving him the football. But defensively last year, Clinton, this team, it seemed a little uncharacteristic for a Greg Schiano team. You think defense is usually pretty good, but they were decimated by injuries last year. I don't remember the exact number of starters they had out by November off the top of my head, but it was 4 or 5, something like that. 70th last year in scoring defense, allowing 25.5 points per game, and they were gashed on the ground last year, 162.8 rushing yards per game against. They bring back on the defense just 6.5 sacks from 2024, coming from 3 defenders, junior Jordan Walker and seniors Jordan Thompson and Keyshawn Griffin. Walker had 4 sacks to co-lead the team last season with the departed Keontae Hamilton. But they seem to be taking the Kurt Signetti approach to the transfer portal, getting the production over the potential. They are tapping the G5 ranks for a couple of all-conference selections. Transfer Eric O'Neill from James Madison. He led the Dukes with 13 sacks last year. That was 4th most in the country. He was a first-team All-Sun Belt selection. 28.5 sacks in his career for a Rutgers defense that only amassed 22 sacks last year, Clinton. That is potentially some huge production coming in through the portal. And then, speaking of the Ohio Bobcats, transfer Bradley Weaver had a team leading 8.5 sacks for Ohio in 2024. He was a first-team All-MAC honor and was the number 1 graded edge rusher in run defense in the MAC, finishing his campaign with an 86.6 grade for PFF for whatever that's worth.
Hey man, stats don't lie. Everybody loves PFF, right?
I don't. It would help if they told us how they tabulated their shit instead of
Yeah.
like, here's a number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That people live and die by. Without
Okay, computer boy.
input. Yeah. So the other big thing about Weaver and O'Neill, 21.5 sacks combined last year. Rutgers had 22 as a team. So those two, on their own, bring in mass production from the defensive line for a team that needs it. You mentioned the sacks, but also the run game that you mentioned, 162 yards a game. You are not going to survive in the Big Ten if that is where your problem is. But they also added, again, one from JMU, the other from USF. South Florida is group of 4, right? I'm not.
No, they're American, I think.
So they are, I say group of 4. Jesus, power 4.
No, they're G5 or
G5.
G6 or whatever.
Okay, so they're swinging from lower ranks to bring these guys up. 2 run stuffers, Doug Blue Eli, what a name, and Darnold Dingohe is what I'm going with here from JMU. So again, Shianu trying to shore up the middle. They attacked the D-line in the portal, one of their biggest weaknesses last year, to really help. The other big turnover that they have on this team is the defensive back and losing senior leaders. Robert Longerbeam, what a name, Shaquan Loyal, Flip Dixon, and Eric Rogers, all name team just in the Rutgers defensive backfield last year. They're all moving on to graduation. However, returning names you may need to keep an eye on to potentially start this year. Bo Musco, who started 4 games at cornerback for them last year. Kaj Sanders, 6 games started at safety. Sanders is kind of a Swiss Army knife, though. I was reading Ryan, and he can play all the defensive back spots. But likely he's going to stay at that safety spot, but he's going to play a lot inside the box because of his tackling ability. Perhaps the biggest snag they got in the portal is transfer nickel cornerback Cam Miller. And if you guys recognize that name, that is because he is from Penn State. He played in all 16 of their games last year, starting 4 of them. And Ryan, what I found funny when doing some digging on this today was it says Miller played in all 16 games, including their Big Ten championship and semifinal game. I'm like, well, no shit. He had to play in those. If he played all 16 games, he had to play in those.
Yeah, you don't need to add. That's journalism 101. You don't need to add extra words. If he played in all 16 games, that would include the 2 games that he did play that happened to fit those qualifications.
It's nothing like being a little bit of redundant. But so some big turnover there. Bringing in here again, where we attacked the portal. Shianu did a really good job bringing these guys in. So I would expect, again, you can never predict injuries, but barring another catastrophe of injuries for Rutgers this year on the defense, I would expect them to be better. And this is kind of where we can jump into the schedule here coming for 2025 to see what faces them a little more in depth with an improved defense and how they might look.
They can't stay healthy. They don't have my guy Steve there anymore working for him.
Yeah, that's the whole jinx, right?
Too busy rehabbing Deshaun.
Oh boy, does he give massages?
Hey man, if you go on Deshaun's Instagram, you'll find Steve. He is on there.
Listen, he
I'd
gets
recognize.
Deshaun and
Listen,
he gets Shador now.
I'd recognize those hands anywhere.
Oh boy, oh boy. I heard that's why they signed Kenny Pickett. Deshaun loves small hands. It makes things look bigger.
We were I text because all three of my roommates or old roommates are Browns fans, and I texted them something, and then Steve just replied, rehab with Deshaun on Monday's going to be interesting.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy, Deshaun, you've sure left a name for yourself.
Good times. So schedule in 2025, Clinton. I think it's challenging, not just from, I mean, if you look at it at face value, right? Like non-conference, you see Ohio, you see Miami of Ohio, not the U, and then Norfolk State, and you're like, okay, you're loading your non-con with 3 G5 teams. That should be an easy peasy cakewalk. And I know I didn't follow the MAC portal as closely as I probably should have, so I feel like I saw something that Ohio got picked apart a little bit again in the portal. So
Smoked again.
We'll kind of see what they look like. I mean, and then obviously you have Tim Albin going to Charlotte, so you don't have your coach anymore. So, but I mean, defending MAC champions, defending MAC runner-up in non-conference, that is not an easy start, particularly for a program like Rutgers, right? It's not like we're talking about Ohio State here that's beaming with talent that you should just go in and sleepwalk through that game. And then, man, you start like right off the bat in Big Ten play. You're hosting Iowa, and then you're going to Minnesota. Those are two tough games to start off with. And then after a bye week, you have to go all the way across the country to take on Washington before coming back home and hosting Oregon the week after that. First half of the schedule, man, is tough. And then, I mean, Purdue might be a gimme, maybe. At Illinois is tough. Maryland, maybe a gimme. But then your last two after one more bye week, you're at Ohio State and you are hosting Penn State to close out your season. So we're looking at the schedule right now, Clinton. It is 3 teams that played in the college football playoff a year ago, plus a team in Illinois that is getting some preseason top 10 to 15 love. So right off the bat here, man, we are talking about a schedule that is significantly more difficult than the one that was facing Rutgers a year ago.
And I'm staring at, not only are you going to go, let me see if my math is correct. Now, I think you're going to get a bye week, Rutgers, Minnesota, before going to Washington. But you still got to travel to Washington, and then you're coming home immediately to get the Oregon Ducks. That is not for the faint of heart. So as you mentioned, a lot of the times you're looking at the beginning of the schedule, and if you somehow don't come out of that 3-0, and this season falls apart, you're not going to make a bowl game.
No.
And I know that's hard to say because Shianu is really good. At getting Rutgers to the bowl games, but Iowa's going to be a challenge. They've already shown. We already did this, guys. Go back and check out our Iowa spring preview with Jeff. Iowa's offensive production is going to jump again this year. They're going to be even better, most likely. I know they're losing Caleb Johnson, but there's word on the street they might have a passing game. So now Rutgers has to defend that. And they're going to get a Drake Lindsay and Darius Taylor-led Minnesota at home. And I was trying to see, Ryan, everything is still on a Saturday right now. I was hoping September 27th would have been a Friday night game, and then we could have flown to Minnesota and watched Rutgers.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's still a chance that they could flex that.
It could be. Although I'd really have to do some talking. That is my anniversary weekend.
No, you should probably not do that.
I might not be doing this podcast anymore during football season. But you're right. I mean, you come off Oregon and get Purdue. That should definitely be a win, but who knows where your head's at if you drop. I mean, look at those first 4. Iowa, Minnesota, Washington, Oregon. What if you go 1-3 in that? Purdue's got to be improved this year. They can't do any worse than no Big Ten wins. I guess you can go 0 wins overall. I mean, I think Notre Dame is still running. Come on, Purdue. You got to be doing better than that.
That's accurate.
But you get no easy November, Illinois, Ohio State, Penn State. Like that. You've got to get your wins early, and you're going to have to sneak some in here if you're going to be bowl eligible this year. And that's even with returning Callie McManus and bringing in the talent that they do on defense. I think when in doubt, you just trust Shianu to get them to 6 wins. He'll find a way. He'll get them to a bowl game. But this is not, I don't want to call it a cupcake. A cupcake maybe in Rutgers terms. Cupcake of a schedule that we saw last year that we talked with Brian in our fall previews. And he kind of said it, and we had a couple guys. It was Sammy as well. It was kind of now or never, right? If you're going to get the 9-10 wins, it was now or never, because you stare at the face of this one. And if you get to 10 wins on this schedule, you're a playoff team. Absolutely. Because that means you would have to have beaten at least one of Ohio State, Penn State, or Oregon, and Illinois. That would be damn impressive. Not going to happen, Rutgers fans. Sorry for you. But I don't know, man. It's a rugged schedule for the Rutgers Knights in 2025.
Listen, Clinton, stranger things have happened. Indiana made the playoff a year ago. Anything is possible.
Speaking of Stranger Things, October 10th, the final season. I believe all those kids are 35 years old now, but
I completely forgot that they were doing one more season.
dude, it's been like 3 years. I think Elliot was only 2 the last time this show came out. It's absurd.
Crazy.
It's hard to do shows with children.
Speaking of crazier things have happened, Northwestern played their entire football schedule at a lacrosse stadium last year, and they're going to do it again this year. We get an encore.
One more year,
folks.
right?
I believe that is correct.
And then we get the real stadium.
Yeah, the real nice Ryan Field. But this year, the lacrosse stadium will be inhabited by a Northwestern team that was unable to do the well, I guess they're kind of on schedule, right? Like they were 8-5 in, hold on, what were they in 21? No, that's when they kind of broke the trend there. Because they went 7-2 and then 3-9 and then 1-11. And then they went 8-5, and then last year they were sub 500 again. So, if they're doing the every other year thing, Clinton, in 2022 they should be a bowl team. But color me skeptical, if you will, about that.
I mean, you look at where they needed to go most, and that was transfers. I believe they changed something within their curriculum to allow for them to bring in more transfers or have more options in the transfer portal versus being so rigorous with their administration. Again, this might be something we have to talk about in our fall previews with a Northwestern beat writer, but they changed something so that they could try to go in and grab more, have more eligible transfers to come in. So their 3 biggest additions, though, that I was diving in, and they're all presumptive starters. Quarterback Preston Stone. Yes, guys, Preston Stone from SMU. Should be a familiar name, who was benched for Kevin Jennings last year. Wide receiver Griffin Wilde. And then Yanni Karloftis, another familiar name from the Big Ten, the Purdue Boilermakers. If you look back, last year wasn't a great year for Stone, and we kind of talked about this as an off-topic thing to begin our season last year. Is not a great start for SMU. He gets benched for Kevin Jennings. But 2023, this is what Northwestern fans should be paying attention to, a stellar season. 3,197 yards passing, 28 TDs to 6 interceptions, only a 59.9% completion percentage. Not bad, but not great. And then you add Griffin Wilde, who I believe is coming in from South Dakota State. 71 catches, 1,154 yards last year, and 12 TDs. You want to talk about being able to, what we'll get to, losing guys like A.J. Henning, there's a piece that you can fit into this offense to make it a little more explosive. And then just Karloftis, 50-plus tackles in his past 2 seasons as a starter for the Boilermakers. So you're bringing back some experience to a Northwestern defense, which, again, we can get to shortly. But I believe they lost a ton because last year they brought back a ton back on the defense as 4th and 5th year seniors. So they're going to be looking for some people to step up. Ryan, just your thoughts. I know we don't cover Stone a lot, but just your thoughts. Again, we saw this last year with Mike Wright. Stone's in here sooner than Mike Wright was last year, but just your thoughts on Preston Stone leading the Wildcats in 2025.
I mean, it's hard to say because it's what version of him are you getting? Because it's not like he was just straight up passed over by Kevin Jennings and then never got a shot to play last year. They tried to play Preston Stone early in the season, and they were awful. They lost to BYU. They looked inept. They nearly lost to Nevada to start the season. And then their fortunes really turned over when they just told Preston Stone, like, look, this is not the offense that you can be successful in. And my worry for that is not that Northwestern and SMU were running drastically similar offenses by any stretch of the imagination, but we're talking about a Northwestern team that relied a fair amount on the quarterback run last year, and I think a lot of that was probably just Jack Lausch having to scramble for his life, but I don't necessarily know that the run or the scramble is a huge part of Preston Stone's repertoire. And I mean, he's not exactly walking into the most talented receiver room in the world, right? So they're top 5 non-running back pass catchers from a year ago. You touched on A.J. Henning, but also Calvin Johnson II, not Calvin Johnson Jr., transferred to Tulsa. He was a lot better in 2023 than he was last year, only 11 catches last year. But Bryce Kurtz also graduates. He had 39 catches for almost 600 yards a year ago. And then tight end Thomas Gordon also graduated, 27 catches for 252 yards last year. In addition to those four, reserve tight end Marshall Lang also left as well. So the receiver room, I mean, you already touched on Griffin Wilde. That's a potentially big explosive piece to this offense that they will need, because outside of him, Clinton, there's not a lot of experience. And by not a lot of experience, I mean on the projected depth chart I saw today, outside of Wilde, there's like 17 combined catches on it at the receiver position. You have redshirt sophomore Frank Covey. He had 10 catches for 89 yards a year ago. I believe also a sophomore Hayden Elgian, the second, 4 catches for 83 yards last year. And Drew Wagner, 3 catches for 31 yards. In addition to Wilde out of the portal, they brought in Stanford transfer, Chase Farrell. He's a redshirt freshman. He did not have any stats last year. They also brought in a tight end from New Mexico State, Alex Lines. I'm not actually sure this man exists because I found no stats from him for the last 2 years. The last stats I saw from him were from Arizona in 2022. And no matter what I Googled, I could not find anything about this man. So I don't know if he transferred there and got hurt or what happened, but he's not played college football in 2 years.
It's a figment of imagination.
I mean, he exists. I've seen pictures of him, but I don't know if this is like a weekend at Bernie's situation where they brought in the corpse of Alex Lyons and put some sunglasses on him and are like, all right, man, just go line up at the H-back position and get in someone's way. But
yeah,
he did not accumulate any stats at New Mexico State.
Yeah, so, you're going to have to lean on Wilde and Stone to be consistent, the 2023. But you do get your running backs returning. Cam Porter, leading rusher from a year ago, 126 carries, 501 yards, 6 TDs. He was I think he was fluttered about a couple times in our college fantasy football. I believe he was utilized a few times by myself. Joseph Hyman II, 52 carries, 257 yards, 2 TDs. And then Caleb Komalafe, what a last name, 50 carries, 139 yards, no touchdowns. But you at least get stability in your running back room. The biggest question, though, that I read today about the offense, not quite quarterback, not quite wide receiver, not quite running back. It's finding the starting 5 on the offensive line. If you don't have an offensive line, you can't pass, you can't run, you can't do anything. Of Northwestern's 11 transfers, Ryan, 3 of them are on the offensive line. Tackle Xavier Gray, who is coming in from Liberty. Guard Evan Berntzen from South Dakota State, and guard Martez Lewis coming over from Minnesota. All 3 players have an exorbitant amount of experience. You will not have to worry about experience on Northwestern's O-line because they're all about to get their Golden Buckeye card. Gray was a first-team Conference USA last year, and Bernstein was a FCS All-American. They are both in their 7th year of college football, Ryan. They both project to immediately plug into the starting lineup, whereas Lewis, who is in his 6th season, combined, these guys have 20 years of college football experience. He will battle for the guard spot opposite of Bernstein. Caleb Tiernan is most likely going to be, he's the only one returning, but he will be likely the starter at tackle, so you do get something back from last year. But it's all about finding what you can get on the offensive line. Who am I blanking on his name? Who's the guy I love to read his book? Phil Steele. Every year, he always talks about continuity of offensive line and like career starts, and then he puts them all together, and that's how he weights the offensive line. I'm betting Northwestern's going to score pretty high for him. When you have guys that are in 20 years combined on 3 of them for your starting offensive line, that is a lot of playing time.
I have a fun fact about Cam Porter. I don't know if it's really a fun fact. So he has, rushing in his career, 1,771 yards.
Okay.
What would you guess that his career yards per carry is?
3.5.
That's 3.9, but that was pretty close.
It's Northwestern.
Wait,
they ain't averaging 5 yards a carry.
Well, that's just crazy. I just, I wonder what, like, he's going to conceivably, and he has 460 rushes in his career. He's conceivably going to surpass 500 and potentially get to 600 this year. Mm-hmm. I wonder what the lowest career yards per carry is for a running back who amassed more than 400 college carries.
Do you know how hard that is? He has to work then.
Yeah.
He's working his ass off to get there. If you're getting him 3.5 a carry, 3.9.
Yep. So he played the entire COVID season. Obviously, he gets a fifth year of eligibility because that didn't count for anyone. But he had, in his 4 years of playing at Northwestern, 81, 87, 166, and 126 rushes. His yards per carry by year is 4.1, 3.3, 3.9, and 4.
3.3.
He is. That's just. It's just so crazy. Like you look at just his counting stats, his attempts, his yards, and his touchdowns, and it's like this guy's played a shitload of football and he has less than 4 yards per carry. That's insane.
And the thing is, he's a really good back.
Yeah.
People are going to read that and think he sucks. It's not him.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's around him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you said he played in the COVID season. That's the Northwestern team that went to the Big Ten championship, play Ohio State. So they were at least decent.
I don't know if he was the lead back for that team.
Well, but I mean, he's playing in it though, right? So it's at least a better team.
Oh no, he was the lead back. He led running backs in carries and yards.
So there we go, guys. I mean, this is where stats aren't always everything. You kind of got to watch the games to dive in. Porter's a good back. I'm sure Hyman and Komalafe are also good backs. But my goodness, please, Northwestern, do this man a favor and give him some holes to run through this year.
And then real quick, defensively, not really a great unit last year. 56th in total defense, but 74th in yards per play and 79th in scoring defense. The rush defense was okay, 37th in the country. But their pass defense was very poor, 89th. So there's a little bit of turnover in the defensive backfield, which maybe that's probably for the best, I guess, if their pass defense was so bad last year. Cornerback Theron Johnson transferred to Oregon. He led the team with 10 pass breakups a year ago. Safety Devin Turner transferred to Baylor, 33 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 3 pass breakups last year. Also lose a little bit in the middle of the defense. Linebacker Xander Mueller graduated, and then recently linebacker Kenny Soares Jr. transferred to NC State. At least Soares was more of a reserve player last year, and Mueller was I think their second or third leading tackler last year. They're looking to replace Turner and Johnson through the transfer portal, adding Andarius Coffey, safety from Memphis. He had 13 tackles and 2 forced fumbles a year ago. And then cornerback Fred Davis II from Jacksonville State, 4 pass breakups a year ago. They are bringing back the rest of their secondary, though. Safety Damon Walters, 42 tackles and 4 for a loss a year ago. And then nickelback Robert Fitzgerald had an interception, 46 tackles last year. And Josh Fussell, 5 pass breakups. The good news for Northwestern's defense is their 5 leading sack getters from a year ago are returning. The bad news is they only had 23 sacks as a team, so they're going to need this quintet of players. Aiden Hubbard had 6 a year ago. Anto Saka had 3.5.
What a name.
Michael Kilbane, 2.5.
Good name.
Najee Story had 1.5. And then Mac Uline, the leading tackler, had 85 tackles last year, also 2 sacks. So they're bringing back a lot of their sack production, Clinton. They just did not have a lot of overall sack production a year ago, which probably would explain a little bit why their pass defense was so bad.
I'm glad you said the linebacker's last name, because if you were going to leave me out to dry on that, I was going to butcher that thing, man.
If you don't know how to say it, just act like you do and no one will question it.
Oh, yeah, I think you did a pretty damn good job there. I mean, it's huge. We just talked about this with Rutgers, and here we are in the same spot with Northwestern. Look at your teams in the mid to bottom tier of the Big Ten. They don't generate pressure, or they're not getting to the quarterback and finishing the pressure with sacks. Again, the 2 guys that Rutgers just added, 21.5 sacks. Northwestern as a team only had 1.5 more than they did. So this is a key part, right? This was always something you could rely on with Northwestern when Pat Fitzgerald was there, was consistent defensive play. I'm not always saying it was top level, but they'd be consistent on defense. Let's see if they can take a step forward into this season. And you're diving in to flip to their schedule. August 30th, Tulane. That's not an easy game to start your season with at Tulane. You get Western Illinois, who I believe is getting a Big Ten run through here. I believe this is the 3rd time we've mentioned them. They're just getting smacked around again, trying to win a game. But you better get those 2. because Big Ten play is not going to be nice to you because on September 13th, you're hosting Oregon in the Mistake by the Lake. There's your shout out, Adam Bedell. I gave you the Mistake by the Lake comment. Then UCLA, an improved UCLA team. I don't know. We'll get to them on Monday. There's obviously been a lot of talk about them with Nico and his brother transferring there. Then you get a Louisiana Monroe, so you get a little bit of a reprieve before you go to Happy Valley to likely get your doors blown off by Penn State. Purdue at home, at Nebraska, at USC, home against Michigan, Minnesota at home, and then at Illinois. So
Clinton.
all in all, go ahead.
Clinton.
You found it.
Western Illinois won 4 games last year.
Hey, look at them.
They ended the 26-game losing streak against a team called McKendree.
Do they have them on the schedule again this year?
Hold, please.
Hold on, line 4.
They do not play McKendree.
How many Big Ten teams they got? 2?
They play Illinois and Northwestern.
Okay, so enjoy getting your free W there, Illinois and Northwestern. But I don't know, man. I'm looking at the schedule. Oregon's a loss. Penn State's a loss. Illinois probably a loss. Nebraska a loss. USC a loss. Minnesota a loss. What are we? Michigan? Who knows what Michigan is? What are we? 5-6 wins now possible? Fighting for bowl eligibility again this year? I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on the schedule?
Oh, hold on. I need to get back to it. I just went down a rabbit hole.
Uh-oh.
Okay, we're back. No, I mean, it's always a weird conversation to have with these Big Ten teams that we perceive are going to be. Hold on, wait. Okay, no, I thought I was going to sneeze. We're good. These Big Ten teams that we perceive to be kind of in the bottom third of the conference, because when you look at a non-conference schedule that features Tulane, you can't sit there and be like, that's going to be an easy W. And I know Tulane lost a fair amount in the portal, but good coach. I really like John Summerall, and you're at Tulane. That is not an easy place to start the season. Now, they should beat Western Illinois. If they don't beat Western Illinois, then this is going to be a
stop the season.
We're going to have a conversation about is Northwestern going to go 0-12, because you can't lose to a team like that. And
you're going to have to get the defibrillator out. Clear!
Yes. But I mean, then you play Louisiana Monroe, who, if my memory serves correct, was they were 5-17 team last year, so my memory does not serve me correct. Oh, they started 5-1.
Yeah.
And then lost their last 6 games. Okay. So I was thinking about the same team. So, I mean, you don't know how that one's going to go. You have that. I mean, you touched on the Oregon game already. You're at Penn State. I mean, at USC coming out of a bye. Who knows what USC is going to be in November? Who knows what Michigan's going to be in November? I mean, there's not a lot of cheap wins that you look at and say, hey, I feel good about Northwestern in this game on this schedule. Maybe Purdue, but
I'm saying 0-4 in November. Jade Maeva, if he's a starter, and he should be, if he's a starter by this point, 2 seasons now, or a season and a half of experience with USC. Bryce Underwood, let's say he starts. I think that's the presumptive guess right now, is that he will be the starter. He's got multiple games under his belt now, more experienced. Do you think going to play by the lake is going to make that kid falter much? I don't know. And then Drake Lindsay, again, numerous starts under his belt. And then Luke Altmaier in Illinois, who very well might be sitting at 9-2 at this point with a win and gets themselves into the playoffs.
Maybe there's a conversation we have next week, but I think USC has legitimate implosion potential next year.
Well, that's what you got to talk to Mark about.
Well, because they have 2 buys mixed in here, so maybe that helps a little bit. But their 4 games before Northwestern are at Illinois, bye, Michigan, at Notre Dame, bye, at Nebraska. Those are 4 teams that are going to want to kick the living shit out of you, and you are a soft program that can't withstand that.
Somehow we find a way as we get closer to the season to rag on USC.
I mean,
it's no wonder
easy.
why none of them listen to our show. I mean, you're more the USC hater than I am.
I mean,
being the Notre Dame guy.
They have 5 fans. It's all good. If one of those 5 fans wants to say something, they are more than welcome.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I mean, interesting season, right? I hope for Northwestern. I like when Northwestern's good, but this is, again, the world that we talked about with Wisconsin, and it's the same with the other Big Ten West teams, but I bring it up for Northwestern because they made the Big Ten championship twice. You don't have the benefit of what you had in the Big Ten West anymore because it's different. I mean, you have Oregon now. You would never have that before. You would have only gotten, I mean, you might have drawn Michigan out of the East, but it just, the games felt much more winnable when the Big Ten was split between two divisions. And now it just is a towering task to take Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan, the perceived three bigger names of the conference, all in one season. And it's an uphill battle before you even start your season, man. Uphill battle.
All right, Clinton, what are we doing on Thursday?
So Thursday, guys, we will be joined by our friend Roman Tomashoff from Locked On Huskies. He's going to come in. We're going to have one team that night. Roman gets the floor to himself. We're going to pepper him with questions about the Washington Huskies coming into year 2 under Jed Fish after finishing 6-7 in year 1. The biggest thing I took from Washington, and Ryan and I hit on it a lot, you need more discipline. Not necessarily the players, but Jesus, be more disciplined. And then on Monday, we are going to be joined by, at least the game plan is, Mark Culkin from Locked On Trojans for the first part of our segment to talk about the USC Trojans. And in the second half, because no UCLA football fans exist either, Ryan and I will be talking about the UCLA Bruins and their newest quarterback additions of the Iamaiva brothers. But that is our game plans. I don't think we currently have anything set for next Thursday just yet because we are winding down in our spring previews, in which afterwards our plan is to go back to once a week. But I might try to peruse around and see if we can find us someone who knows MAC football pretty well to join us and chit-chat about MAC football next Thursday. And then to wrap us up, it'll be our guy Jack from Notre Dame to talk about the Fighting Irish in building off of a season in which they were the national runners-up. Again, guys, if you tuned in tonight, thank you so much for joining us. If you find us on YouTube, ITP CFB, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to help grow the show. Follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram, ITP CFB. And then check us out the morning after every live episode. We are up on your preferred podcast platform, Inside the Pylon Midwest College Football Podcast.
Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in to Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football Podcast. For Clinton Boring, my name is Ryan Sadkoviak. Please pray for me and my bedtime. This shit's going to suck.
Deuces.